Good afternoon. My name is Seafood Dave Charlesworth from KAJUKENBO Napoli in Naples, Italy. Today, I want to talk about what KAJUKENBO is and provide some of the reasons why it's so brutally effective for the streets. But first, I'd like to say thank you for watching, and please subscribe to my channel, and please feel free to leave any reactions or suggestions in the comments section down below. I appreciate your support and you taking the time to support my channel so I can keep bringing you content to complement your martial arts journey. KAJUKENBO is a street fighting style that was born in Hawaii following World War II and leading up to the Korean War. Officially, it was born from 5 masters who formed the Black Belt Society, who met in secret with one goal in mind. That is to develop a no-nonsense and effective martial art and to develop the ultimate system of self-defense, which is tailor-made for the streets. They met in secret, sharing their techniques, finding the strengths and weaknesses of each individual style, testing their techniques against each other, exchanging ideas, and filling in the gaps. The group was not made up of old men with Fu Manchu facial hair with a lifetime of traditional martial arts experiences, as some may picture. They were all young men in their 20s who grew up in one of the roughest neighborhoods in Hawaii, the Palama Settlement. The fact of the matter is that most of them, although skilled martial artists, were not black belts of their respective arts at the time. These men, skilled martial artists, were also experienced street fighters, and their goal was to create a style that would make them invincible, standing up to those who were looking for trouble, usually consisting of a mix of criminals, street thugs, and drunken servicemen. So from 1947 until 1949, each brought a different style to bear in this effort. Okay. Peter Chu was a Judo karate guy and a boxer. He was also a Kenpo-Jui student under Thomas Young. Joseph Hulk brought Kodokan Japanese Judo and Danzen Ryu Hawaiian Jiu-Jitsu. Frank Ordonez brought Japanese and Hawaiian Jiu-Jitsu and was also a Kenpo Jiu-Jitsu student. Adriano Directo Imperato brought Kenpo, Okinawan and Japanese, American boxing, Japanese Judo and Jiu-Jitsu, as well as Filipino Eskrima and Kung Fu. Clarence Chang brought Kung Fu, or Chinese boxing. Kenpo was the base style of the art, possibly due to 3 of the 5 founders being Kenpo Jiu-Jitsu practitioners under the Matosi line. Sijo Adriano Imperato, in fact, was Chao's first black belt in 1949. Frank Ordonez and Peter Chu, while they didn't receive their black belts, studied Kenpo Jiu-Jitsu under Thomas Young. They worked together in secret, creating techniques and trying them out first on each other to see how they worked against each of the trained fighters' strengths, and then took them out into the streets and tested them in actual street fights to make sure that the techniques they created actually worked. Now, how's that for pressure testing? They continued their efforts until late 1949, when, due to military obligations, the Black Belt Society went their separate ways. Sijo Imperato remained, and what he did next resulted in the creation of what KAJUKENBO is today. In 1949, Sijo began teaching his brother Joe Imperato, Mario Tiwanik, and about 10 of his co-workers from Pan American Airlines at the Halawa Veterans Housing Area, until later moving his class to the Palama Settlement Gym. At this point, some would say that KAJUKENBO was born, and that the original concepts and techniques that the Black Belt Society created between 1947 and 1949 were complete. However, some would argue that the defining moment and creation of what would later become known as KAJUKENBO continued to evolve as Sijo Imperato started to teach at the Palama Settlement Gym with his brother Joe Imperato as his assistant. Now, later that year, Woodrow McCandless, who was teaching Kenpo Jiu-Jitsu at the time at the Palama Settlement Gym, merged his class with Sijo Imperato, becoming an assistant instructor. Now, I think that's pretty noteworthy, as Woodrow McCandless essentially took a step down because he liked what KAJUKENBO had to offer and he wanted to learn. Now, as I mentioned in a previous video, although he was a black belt in Kenpo-Jui, he was willing to start over as a white belt in KAJUKENBO. Cedro Imperato refused and recognized his black belt in Kenpo-Jui and simply stated, no, you are a black belt and you will learn eventually by helping me teach. So in 1950, Cedro Imperato as the chief instructor and Joe Imperato as his assistant, also with Woodrow McCandless and Mario Tiwanek as assistant instructors at the Palermo Settlement Gym. At this point, I'd say that KAJUKENBO was a concept. The foundation had been laid, but the house has yet to be built. Adriano Imperato and his brother Joe are known for their street fighting abilities. They decided to take the streets to the mat, meaning brutishly realistic training where it wasn't uncommon for someone to get hurt during training, requiring a hospital visit from their participation in class. In fact, Cedro was quoted as saying, "Class is not over until there's blood on the floor." The Imperato brothers, along with McCandless and Tiwanek, moved forward constructing, refining, and adding to the foundation that was created by the founders from 1947 to 49. Now, these first 8 years were effectively established KAJUKENBO's original method and what was presented to the world officially in December of 1957 in a Hawaiian newspaper article, and later when it was registered in 1960 with the state of Hawaii. I'd be remiss if I failed to mention that Cedro also opened an additional 12 schools in Hawaii during this time period. But my point is that these incredible individuals contributed significantly to the development of the original method of KAJUKENBO through their hard work, dedication, and creative genius, bringing the concept and the technique to life at the Palermo Settlement Gym. So KAJUKENBO continued to evolve as Cedro Imperato felt that the Chinese martial arts had much to offer KAJUKENBO. In 1959, Cedro, along with Al Dacascos and Al de la Cruz, began to develop the Chun Fa style of KAJUKENBO, which Cedro named Tun Pai, incorporating Southern styles of Kung Fu as well as Tai Chi. In late 1964, Sifu Al Dacascos moved to the San Francisco Bay Area in California, where he continued to train with various Chinese influences of Kung Fu. This resulted in further modification to the Tun Pai techniques, leading Sifu Al to conclude that the Tun Pai name was no longer applicable. Meeting with Cedro and Al de la Cruz, he explained his concerns and demonstrated the new techniques, which now included Northern Kung Fu techniques. They all agreed that they should change the name to Chun Fa. Sifu Al then developed the training syllabus, presented it to Cedro, and the Chun Fa became an official branch of KAJUKENBO in 1966. Cedro's desire was to convert all of KAJUKENBO to the new style. He assigned Al de la Cruz to return to Hawaii and teach the new techniques, while Sifu Al Dacascos would remain in California, teaching the new style on the mainland. Many practitioners of the original method preferred to keep teaching the original hardstyle method and resisted the change. Well, Cedro allowed them to choose, with some remaining and others accepting the change, and some embracing the opportunity to develop their own expressions of Chun Fa. He did, however, require all of KAJUKENBO to adopt the Chinese titles by some previous Japanese expressions, eventually adopting further Chinese titles for the upper ranks. At this time, as time went on, Sifu Al Dacascos continued to study the Chinese arts, making changes and tweaks as he went along. As the years passed, he realized that his method of Chun Fa had become a personal expression of his interpretation and the addition of the many different styles that he had studied along the way. He was no longer practicing and teaching the Chun Fa method as previously developed. His method was the next evolution, and Wun Hop Kuen Do, which means combination fist art style, became the next and the last of the 4 recognized styles of KAJUKENBO. Or is it? As previously stated, Chun Fa replaced Tun Pai in 1966. And since that time, Tun Pai was essentially absorbed into the Chun Fa style. Well, in 1971, Sifu John Loren began incorporating Tai Chi and Southern Tsulum into his KAJUKENBO, which he then called Northern KAJUKENBO. Well, while staying with Sijo in Hawaii in around circa 1974, he demonstrated his techniques, and although his techniques differed from the original Tun Pai, he asked Sijo if he could bring back the Tun Pai branch. And Sijo Imperato agreed and allowed him to assume the Tun Pai name. And ever since, this method has continued to evolve into what it is today. So I think technically, this would be the 5th style that replaced the 2nd. Although there are 4 recognized styles of KAJUKENBO, Sijo Imperato stressed that no single style is superior to another, a fact that might well be the genesis that resulted in the creation of KAJUKENBO in the first place. One might think that each evolution and subsequent creation of a new style was an improvement, but they are 4 different, distinct expressions of the original concepts that have evolved into what they are today. Now, this is one of the major differences that really sets KAJUKENBO apart from traditional martial arts styles. From the beginning, KAJUKENBO was meant to be adaptive, and as such has continued to evolve constantly. Once a student receives their black belt and starts teaching at their own school, they are not required to mimic their instructor's teachings and are, in fact, encouraged to develop their own expression, adding to and taking away as the threats that we face in the streets also change. Are you confused yet? Well, it doesn't stop there. Today, there are countless methods of KAJUKENBO being taught all over the United States and in many parts around the world. While some maintain the techniques that were taught to them by their instructor before them, there are many that continue to change and to add to the knowledge, which resulted in many different methods that fall under the umbrella of each of the 4 previously mentioned styles. Simply put, I would describe, so far, I think we've done a pretty good job of describing a large portion of what makes up KAJUKENBO. But what is KAJUKENBO? Well, simply, I guess, I describe it as a highly effective American mixed martial art that was made for the street. Sounds pretty simple. Well, the reality is that it's much more complex and difficult to put into words that a non-KAJUKENBO practitioner would understand. Well, KAJUKENBO has often been called the original mixed martial art. Well, in today's culture, some may even argue that it's not MMA, as the definition has changed since the advent of the UFC. Well, by definition, it is a mixed martial art, drawing its techniques from many other martial arts that make up the acronym KAJUKENBO. Well, today, there are probably many more styles that are not included in that acronym. Basically, if a technique from another style works, we find a way to incorporate it into KAJUKENBO. Some say KAJUKENBO is a mindset. Well, I'm not sure exactly what that means, but for me, I think it means learning and always looking for ways to improve upon the techniques that we use, to be open-minded and to always be willing to learn new techniques. We're not set in our ways, and we just embrace what works. Is it a combat martial art? Well, I guess that depends on your definition of combat. While its use is not widespread in military combat, perhaps it should be. It can and is designed to take action to reduce or prevent something bad or undesirable from happening. Specifically, being robbed, physically injured, or death. KAJUKENBO is a highly effective with its fast, powerful, and accurate strikes to vital areas of the body. Violence of action could be considered its signature and defining characteristic. After all, it was designed by street fighters who just happen to be martial artists, boxers, and military men. Most of the techniques in KAJUKENBO can be characterized as either blocking, controlling, or attacking. KAJUKENBO, unlike traditional styles, is not a linear fighting method and stresses the use of angles of attack and or defense. A block is often a strike and sets up the attacker for the next strike, creating a flow that becomes a rapid-fire and relentless onslaught of strikes. The idea is to overwhelm the attacker with strikes, not giving them the opportunity to strike, usually finishing with a takedown, followed by ground techniques designed to finish the fight as quickly and efficiently as possible. Okay, which allows for engagement of follow-on attackers or a rapid escape to safety. Use of objects and or physical characteristics of the surrounding environment, like throwing attackers into a wall, a parked car, a fire hydrant, a tree, or a curb, is also a consideration. This is street fighting. Limb destruction, breaking bones, and dislocating joints are often included in the techniques that we practice. The goal is to survive and to return home to our families at the end of the day. While self-defense and being able to survive an encounter in the streets is the primary goal, KAJUKENBO has proven to be very effective in combat sports. The way that we fight is different, and the principles that we use for the streets can be effectively employed in tournament setting as well. Is KAJUKENBO the ultimate martial art for all situations? Well, while Sijo himself stated there is no martial art that is, the goal was to create the ultimate martial art to make you invincible in the streets. Creating punch counters, grab arts, club counters, knife defense techniques to counter not only skilled fighters, but also multiple attackers. Well, while there may not be a single martial art that is suitable for every situation, KAJUKENBO has proven to be quite effective in most. So with that said, if you are KAJUKENBO, I would love to hear your feedback on anything that I've said and anything you think that could or should be added. I'm sure that there is much more that could be said. If you're not KAJUKENBO and have questions, please feel free to ask. And again, please leave any comments or questions below in the comments section of this video on my YouTube page. And if you've not done so already, at least let me know you like this video by hitting the like button and subscribe to my channel. I appreciate your love and support, and I thank you for watching. Mahalo.